Okay, everybody. Well, as you can see, we have first responders in the background, and we love our first responders because when things get tough, they're going to be the ones there to help us get through. So we love the first responders. What I wanted to talk to you about today is I wanted to talk to you about the 7 confessions to the murders of Tupac and Biggie. Yeah, 7 confessions. The first confession that we have happens in prison. Suge Knight is in prison. Reggie Jr. comes up and meets with Suge and tells him how the Biggie murder happened. And Suge relays what Reggie had to say to a federal informant that was put next to Suge Knight. And this federal informant had been a reliable informant previously. And he's a reliable informant. Sorry about that. And he's a reliable informant again. And he tells him about how the murders went down. He talks about how it was all coordinated on radios and cell phones. And what's interesting about that is David Mack, there were radios recovered at David Mack's place, and they were used in the bank robbery, same MO. And so we get a sense of who was involved and how the murders went down from Suge Knight, relayed and confessed by Reggie Wright Jr. The second confession of this happens with Amir Muhammad. Amir Muhammad, he confesses to Psycho Michael Robinson, and talks about how the murders went down. There's another Amir Muhammad confession that happens. That Amir Muhammad confession is with Clayton Hill, and that's Nation of Islam. And they basically hid Amir Muhammad. And he talks about the 25 grand he was paid for the hit. And he hands over the gun, and the gun is disposed of by the Nation of Islam. So those are, now we're at 3 confessions. The 4th confession happens with Rafael Perez. Rafael Perez is put next to an inmate, tells him the story about how this all went down, talks about how he was on duty at the time, went over and kicked shell casings. All of that gets confirmed. It gets confirmed that he was on duty at the time, and he was at the Peterson Automotive Museum that night. And so that's the 4th confession. The 5th confession happens when Rafael Perez confesses to his daughter that he was involved in the murder of Biggie Smalls. Well, he also confesses that he was involved in the murder of Tupac Shakur. And so that's the 6th confession. The 7th confession to the murders of Tupac and Biggie is the confession letter. And the confession letter basically talks about guns that were involved, shooters, cars, all that stuff. Talks about the 6 barricades. And the 6 barricades are the cars that are surrounding Suge Knight. And you have Trayvon, who blocks him in. You have Trayvon, who whispers in Tupac's ear. You have Trayvon, who goes to Club 662 after hearing, after Michael Moore hears "Got Him" come over Reggie Wright's radio, and then another voice comes on and says, "Don't say nothing over the radio," and then Reggie gets on and shuts down the radios, so there's no more communication. So instead of going to the hospital where Suge and Tupac were taken, Trayvon goes over to Club 662, and he's the start of the whole thing about how Orlando Anderson was behind the shooting. And so probably we can't trust what he had to say, because he looks very suspicious, having whispered in Tupac's ear, having blocked in Suge, and having head over to Club 662. And he's also most likely confidential, reliable informant number 3 in the Tupac murder affidavit that gets written for the search. And in that search, one of the people that are in the confession letter, his residence is the only one that's listed not searched of the Mob Piru guys. And so that's also, we're starting to get a sense of what happened that night. We're starting to figure out exactly what went down in both of these murders. And these are 7 confessions. Machiavelli, 7, right? 7-day theory, 7 confessions. 7 confessions to the murders of Tupac and Biggie. More later.